Well, first of all, a question of how did this film happen? Because I read it was shot back to back or together with X, but because they are so different visually, and like they take place in different eras. So how was it possible to shoot them together? I suppose they were. Well, you shot one and then you shot the other one. How did it happen? This project?
Well, I mean, it's a very interesting thing that happened in the midst of COVID. We went to New Zealand to make a film called X. And when we were in New Zealand, you had to do 2 weeks in quarantine to get into the country so that you could, be a part of the country that had zero COVID at the time, so we could make this. X was a movie that would have been very difficult to make in a social distance kind of way because of what the movie was. And so we had put all this effort into going to this country and putting a whole crew there and a cast there. And we, spent all this time and money building all this stuff for X that it seemed like, well, what if we just made 2 movies in a row, because you can't make movies anywhere else, and we're all going to be very fortunate to be here, and we have all these talented people. And so that's where the initial idea of doing 2 movies came from. And then Mia and I started collaborating because Mia was playing Pearl in X, and we started talking about like what Pearl's backstory would be, and what a prequel movie would look like about her when she was young. And that just snowballed into the story that it became, and all credit to A24 for liking the script and believing in the ambition of it. And so we shot X, and we were prepping Pearl a little bit at the same time with the hopes that it was going to happen. And A24 ultimately said yes prior to even making X, which is a miracle that I'm very grateful for. And then we finished shooting X, and 3 weeks later we were shooting Pearl. So we finished X, let's say on a Friday, and then on Monday we were back in the office prepping Pearl. And so it was very fast, but it was the same people, and we've been talking about it the whole time. So it was one of those like once in a lifetime, something like this comes together, and we're here because that did.
Pearl is a very interesting film tonally because it starts also almost as a parody. It reminds you of Douglas Sirk. There is this continuous orchestral score. The titles are so flashy. So you sort of expect it to be almost a parody of horror films. And then there are moments where it becomes so real, and I'm thinking especially on a couple of very long takes on you telling your story or telling what troubled you in the past. So how did you manage this 2 very different feelings inside the same film? And were you aware of course,
well,
showing the viewer in a different way?
Well, when we came off X, which was a movie that was really sort of an ode in a way to the 1970s auteurish American independent cinema, I knew that Pearl was going to be in the vein of this sort of old golden age of Hollywood type thing. Because it felt like a story about someone with dreams and ambitions, and X was a movie about how cinema affects people, and Pearl was going to be the same, and just a different kind of cinema. So we always just felt like, let's just go all the way with it. And so there is a jarring moment when, especially when people don't know what to expect from it, is when it starts and you're like, whoa, this is a full commitment to a different era and a different vibe. But we always just felt like, if you're going to get wet, you might as well go swimming, and just to go for it. And I think we believed in the character, we believed in the story, and I think the truth that was in Mia's performance is what carries the movie. I mean, is in every frame of the movie. And we also knew we were building towards this big monologue that was probably the one deeply, like, if there was ever any big chunk of realism in the movie, it would be then, and we were really trying to earn our way to get there. So, I don't know, I think we just tried really hard to do what.
I'd like to hear your take about how you got into that monologue. That's very, very painful, very intense. You almost expect him to cut away to the listener, and of course he doesn't. So how did you build up to that moment?
Yeah, well, we actually shot that scene on our last day of filming, and that was done intentionally. It wasn't lost on us how difficult that was going to be. Ty had mentioned that he had this idea where he would love to just have me saying the monologue and just have it be one take. And as an actor, I loved that idea, and I loved the challenge of that. And so really I was, with the 3 weeks that we had to turn around the set to make Pearl, I was working on it, and it was with me every moment I had off off the Pearl set to just kind of go over it and just try one, just try and get the lines so that I could then, not have to think about the lines anymore, and just, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was wondering about the collaboration because, of course, you're also the screenwriter of both the movies. So, as an actress, that probably allows you a wider range of improvisation, maybe, or did you stick to what you had decided before on paper? I was wondering how much of the film changed from the project while you were on the set. That was the question.
I don't think very much.
Not
I don't think there was
very
any
much.
improv. I think it was pretty much. Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing that was, it's a relatively larger than life film. So sometimes when you were actually shooting it, you'd be like, whoa, maybe we need to tone this down, or maybe go bigger with this. But we certainly didn't improvise, and I think in many ways it was just.
The script didn't need it.
Yeah, I think we just sort of.
Sometimes the
Committed to
script
it.
needs it, but because I was really proud of what we had made, and sometimes you come across a script and it doesn't sound like anything someone would ever say, and sometimes it needs a little bit of work. But we had this opportunity, and we really made it ours, so that by the time we got to set, it was kind of ready to go.
I'd like to hear from you some kind of statement about the state of horror films. It's also an event having a horror film in Venice. There's been a few before, but of course it's not a genre film in a way. So there's this playing with the genre, but doing your thing. So how important do you think is using a genre to make a film we could call an auteurish film?
I mean, I love horror movies. I love all kinds of horror movies. I think there are more kinds of horror movies than generally people think about. And so, for me, I also just love cinema. And I think what's great about horror is that you're not as confined aesthetically as you are in certain other genres. So you can kind of take big swings, and you can do things that are a little more experimental. And the audience will go with it because they're kind of expecting something bizarre, something weird, something challenging, and they're a little bit more prepared to go in and go on that ride with you. And so as a filmmaker, it's really fun because I also come to movies visually, so it's fun to be able to really lean into that. And it's a genre that more so than, say, a romantic comedy or a straightforward drama, you can explore more cinematically, and that's fun for me.
Thank you very much. They're knocking on the door, so we
did
have
it.
to wrap it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.